Achal,
Yes.
we have about six people in the waiting room, so we will begin then. One,
Okay.
yeah, one. Hello everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Avijit, and I'm from United Way, Mumbai. And welcome to today's mental health session, where we are going to discuss about prejudice and social stress and mental health in our LGBTQ community. Uh, we understand that the LGBTQ community member goes through a lot of emotional hardship, and that is furthermore worsened by the stigmatization and discrimination faced by each one of them. Uh, Certain feelings of guilt, shame, and subsequent stress builds up to it, and impacts the overall well-being. So today in this session, we have Achal Narang, who is going to help us understand, and we are going to have a discussion about how to what are the best ways to handle such situations. A little bit about Achal. Achal is a counseling psychologist and a founder of Another Light Counseling, which specializes with trauma, addiction, gender, and sexuality. She has also been a trainer of queer affirmative counseling practices. She also works with multiple NGOs for interventions planning and helping in raising funds. Achal, over to you.
Thanks. Thanks for calling me and thanks for having me here. So I would just want whoever is here also to type in maybe some of the expectations they have from this workshop or some of the doubts or questions that they would like me to cover, and I'm gonna cover stuff anyway. But in case someone has an expectation specifically that they would want me to cover, we could do that. Uh, and could I know if people would want to like be participative? Then I would ask some questions. If yes, could you just type me a yes in the chat box or unmute yourselves? Yes, no, we don't know. Yes, cool. Okay, great. Um, so I'm just gonna start off this lecture by asking everyone a question. What do you think your gender is? Please type it in the chat box first. Okay. Could everyone just type in their gender in the chat box? Okay, great. So most people have said female, male. Can I have two volunteers who might be willing to unmute their mics? Okay, so I see Darshana unmuting. And can I have another volunteer?
Yep.
Okay, hey now. Okay, so both of you said that you're females, right? That I remember from the chat box as far.
Yeah.
Yeah, could you tell me why do you think you're females?
Mm, haven't really questioned it, I think.
Okay, but you still write female on every form, right? And today also you wrote
Yeah,
female
yeah.
really fast in the chat box without much thought. So, what makes you a female?
On my private body parts.
Okay, so your private body parts. And Darshana, what makes you a female?
Yeah, like the private body parts, and I do feel like I don't know what female is. So yeah, private body parts.
Okay, so private body parts. Okay. Just continue assisting me for some time. So, both of you have said private body parts, right? Uh,
Hmm.
I want to now talk to you about sex. I'm assuming you have long hair. Do both of you have long hair?
No,
Yeah.
I have short hair.
Okay, great. So the one who has long hair, I'm going to give them a nice haircut, something like mine, maybe a little more spiky or mohawky, and I'll give you also a mohawk haircut. Then I'm just going to nicely put testosterone in your body. Testosterone is a hormone found in males, right? More in
Yeah.
women. And then I'm going to nicely take you all for a surgery. And I'm going to remove your breasts, make it flat chested, remove your vagina, construct a penis there, uh,
Hmm.
make you like dress up really nicely in nice suit, blazer, and everything. Do you think you'll become a man?
Uh, Not a man. I mean, I'll be, I don't know, my sex would be male, but yeah, the gender can still be a woman if I want to be a woman. So,
Yeah, fair enough. But and Darshana, what do you think?
Um. Yeah. I've thought about it. If I want, like when I was going through the LGBT phase, like what I am or anything. So I did think about sex surgery and stuff. So I don't think I would mind. Yeah.
Okay, you don't think you would mind?
Yeah.
Okay, so you would not mind being called a man right now,
No.
yeah, after the surgery, and Hannah, you would mind it.
I won't mind it, but I would prefer being called woman more. So,
Okay. You know, in so many workshops that I've done, both of you are the first people who said that after the surgery, we wouldn't mind it. Most people just generally just say no because that's not how they feel. And the reason I explained this with this example was, by the way, thank you for your help. The reason I explained this by this example is to just ensure that what you have on your body is not what gender is. What you both described as gender were actually genitalia,
yeah.
often referred as sex. And sex is different from gender. So that's why I could change your sexual organs, and then still Henna could be like, okay, I would still feel like a woman, most probably, or I would prefer being called a woman. I wouldn't mind being a man.
Yeah.
And I love how gender has suddenly become this I wouldn't mind it. I want to get a guy volunteer. Is there a guy who would volunteer? Any person who identifies as a man would want to volunteer? Yes, no, horrible.
Yeah, sure, I can do that.
Okay. Okay, cool. So if would you mind being like if I did the same thing to you, did a surgery, took out testosterone, put in like estrogen, would you mind being like then would you feel like a woman?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's very interesting, right? How Sahej, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, Sahej said that he would not feel like a woman, but Darshana and Hannah was like, we wouldn't mind. Now, one
mm.
question I would like to bring up is whether this is because when a woman becomes a man, there is certain power and privilege she gets in society, certain advantage she gets in society. And when you ask a man to become a woman, there's a certain level of disadvantage that you get in society. But I'm just bringing that might be that. But let's go back to what gender is. So gender is basically a feeling, right? Which is why if I change everything about Sahaj, he still probably wouldn't feel like a woman. So gender is a feeling as to what you think your gender is. It's how you feel and how you identify it yourself. And then gender is also an expression. Gender is also a performance. Gender is a performance in the way that we all perform gender on an everyday basis by what we choose, what type of perfume we choose to wear, how we choose to dress, where we choose to go, which colors we choose to wear, are all associated with gender. If you actually look around in the world, everything, literally everything around you has gender. In like languages like Hindi, everything is actually given a gender. So gender is consists of two things: how you feel and how you perform it. Is everyone clear till here? Does anyone have a question, comment? No. Okay. Cool. So, what most people understand by gender is they say that there are only two types of genders, only two types of genders that are male, female, and maybe or not, there's this third category that exists, which is called the other. Uh, well, for a strange, I'm gonna ask this, and you all can either unmute yourselves or put in the chat box. Can you guess the number of genders in the world today? Can someone take a guess the number of genders in the world today? 30. Hannah said 30. What else? Someone said 3. Okay. Someone saying 3 again. Someone saying 6. Someone is like more than 10. Someone's 4. Male, female, other, so 3. What else? Another one saying 3. Okay. So, just for fun, it's definitely not 3. Uh, and then someone says gender isn't a spectrum. Gender is definitely a spectrum, but I asked the question today as how many genders exist today in the world. And today in the world, there exist 81 genders. Does anyone feel odd that I said 81? Yeah, so there are 81 genders, and we don't know any, and we don't need to know any. We just need to know that gender is more than the binary. Binary means two. So gender is more than just being a man and just being a woman, and there is a lot that is in between. So if this pen had to be a straight line, masculinity would be the cap and femininity would be the refill car end of the spectrum. Now anything can lie in between the spectrum, then that's why gender is a spectrum. And different people can lie at the gender spectrum at different points of time in life because it's about how you feel, right? So that is gender. Now what is sex? Sex is basically what your biology is. So your genitalia and your hormones, and that comprises of sex. So when you talk about male and female, you're actually talking about your sex, you aren't talking about your gender. When you're talking about your gender, you're actually referring to masculinity or femininity. So she's a very masculine woman would be a statement that someone would refer, saying that at least outwardly this person seems masculine, right? Where do you think gender is made from? How many of us? Society. Yeah. So someone said, so two questions. Gender is made up from society, yes. And there's a question in my chat box that talks about if gender is a spectrum, how come 81 have come up? Because they've come up in a different form of variation. That no one expects anyone to learn 81 genders by heart or have a representation of 81 genders in a form. What we expect is for you to realize that there is more than masculine men and women, and there is a spectrum, and there are non-normative genders that nobody looks at, and every time that they are invisibilized. So we're talking about who makes gender and what gender is. So we were talking about a society makes gender, right? Everyone knows that gender is a social norm because according to your gender, you actually expected to do certain things in a particular way in life. You're more likely to be a certain way in life. You're supposed to fulfill certain roles, which is what called gender roles in society. Now I'm going to take a leap further and I'm going to say that sex is societally constructed. Is anyone does anyone have like, whoa, what are you saying? So basically I'm saying that sex in itself, sex and gender are both societally constructed. Is everyone with me? Cool. Someone said society. Everyone's agreeing. So everyone's saying yes to what I asked whether you're with me or not, which is great. Now I want to ask you, but do you think that sex is societally constructed? Gender though is societally constructed. So someone said not sure, bit shocked. Okay, yeah. So let's take it let's take an example. Okay, so I'm not saying there isn't a difference between a man body and a female body, right? But I'm talking inherent about the meaning and what they might need to do after being that. Let's again, I would like two volunteers. Could I get different volunteers this time? Yes, no. Someone volunteers. If not, I'll continue in a second. Okay, fine. So I'm just gonna continue. Imagine that everything in a human being is determined between what's in between your legs. On a daily basis, do we know what's in between someone's legs? We assume it, right? When you have a child sitting in a classroom, do you know who's sitting beside you or which colleague is sitting behind you? And can you definitely guarantee me that when they open their pants, there's going to be a penis or there's going to be a vagina? In all probability, not. We assume that and function, but on the basis of what's between in a child's legs, we determine the rest of the course of their life. For example, would you think this is weird or ekdam ridiculous, and you'll probably call me like insane to an extent if I said that babies who had blue eyes had all the power in the world. They could go out whenever they came. They would get professions in top, like their professions would be really, really well paying. They could get married to whoever they wanted. They could, nobody could say anything to them. They were preferred. And babies who had black eyes were meant to actually serve babies with blue eyes. They would not be able to go out extremely late. They would always fear about their safety and someone beating them up. They would also not be able to study, and nobody would want them to study, and nobody would want them to actually get a career. Does it sound ridiculous on the basis of blue eyes and black eyes? If I divided society? Yeah, because we generally do that with genitalia. And the joke is, when we talk about blue eyes and black eyes, at least you see everyone's blue eyes and black eyes and you use it every day 24/7. How much do you use your genitalia on a daily basis when it comes to studying, meeting people, interacting with people, or using it as a function? You literally use it to pee and to masturbate or have sex, and that's all you use it for, but that determines the course of your entire life. So if that's not socially constructed, what would it mean? It is, right? Because it has a meaning. If you have a penis in between your legs, it means that you're a man, you're powerful, right? So the same thing is societally constructed and we never pay much attention to it. So basically what I'm saying is sex and gender are different, but they both are constructed through society. Now, just out of curiosity, I'm gonna ask you: do you know the meaning of someone who's an intersex person? Have you ever heard this word before? Okay, so if you heard this word before, tell me about it. Whoever's heard it, tell me what do you think an intersex person is?
When a child is born with both the genitalia, female and male, or a combination of, um, maybe more of female genitalia or less of male, or vice versa. So, and sometimes it's not even obvious, and they get to know pretty late. So yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking about genitalia in Hindi, I mean, sorry, I just read the chat box. So I'll try to switch more between Hindi. तो when you're talking about intersex, सबने बोला यहाँ पे कि इंटरसेक्स वो इंसान होता है जिसके दोनों टाइप के जेनिटेलिया होते हैं, वो हो सकता है, पर वो सेम टाइप, वो एक ही टाइप का इंटरसेक्स नहीं होता है. You can be intersex if you have genitalia which is non-normative. Now what do you mean by non-normative genitalia? अगर आप आदमी हैं और आपका पीनिस 3 इंच का है तो आप आदमी हैं, पर अगर आपका पीनिस 2.9 इंच का है तो आप आदमी नहीं है. Then what you are considered is an intersex person. So basically, intersex, someone is defined as intersex when their genitalia doesn't meet your regular standard of genitalia. A lot of times, uh, a person seems like they have normative genitalia, and after 15-20 years of hitting puberty, you are told that, hey, you are not normative, you are an intersex person because of so and so reason. Now, isn't it stupid that 1.1 inch of a penis would make someone live their entire life in shame? It it definitely is, and society ensures that that person lives in shame. Now, who decides this? Who are these people making these decisions of 1 inch and 2 inch, and this is what normal looks like, and this is what not normal looks like, or non-normative looks like, which is pathetic. First of all, labeling someone as normal and versus not normal. Upar se, the people who make these decisions are often people who have a lot of money, who are white, who are older men, who have gone to Ivy League colleges. So the decisions that they make come from, I don't know, textbook and not from their experiences in life, and they don't know the lived realities of so many people who are marginalized. So again, questionable, right? So intersex person is someone who doesn't have non-normative genitalia. Now, just another question for fun. Who do you think is a hijra person? And is a hijra person the same as an intersex person? How is it different? Someone said it's different. Tell me how it's different. Yes, no. Yes, being transgender is different. It comes under the gender spectrum. हाँ, अभी मैंने सेम चीज बोला, इंटरसेक्स दोनों सेक्स लेके नहीं आते. इंटरसेक्स का जेनिटेलिया बस डिफरेंट होता है नॉर्मेटिव जेनिटेलिया से. ये मिथ है कि इंटरसेक्स इंसान के पास दोनों जेनिटेलिया होता है. एंड someone who belongs to the hijra community is part of a community which is only seen in South Asia. So that's a community. Now, since someone mentioned the word transgender, what is a transgender person? Who is a transgender person? Have you heard the word transgender before? Yes, no. Okay, so then who is a transgendered person if you all have heard it before? Okay. So a transgender person is not someone. So someone said that someone who identifies a gender as not male or female, that's actually not who a transgendered person is. So when we all are born, the doctor looks at us and looks at our genitals and then says boy or girl, right? So he looks at your genitals and then establishes your gender, right? I have been trying to establish in this entire session that your gender and your sex, which are your genitals, are not the same thing, they are different things, right? So when a doctor comes in, looks at a child, says this is a girl because she has a vagina, you this person might not feel like a girl, might not identify as a girl, so she does not identify with the gender assigned to her at birth. That person becomes a transgender person. So a transgender person is someone who does not or identify as the gender assigned to them at birth. Fair? So if you are someone who was labeled a girl when you were born and you still feel like a woman today, you are someone I will call cis. If you are someone who was labeled a girl when you were a kid and now like and doesn't identify as a girl, you are trans. Can I know कि ये समझ में आया कि नहीं समझ में आया?
मैम मैं यही बोलना चाहता हूँ कि मतलब मैंने ऐसे सुना है कि अगर वो बायोलॉजिकल मेल पैदा होता है बट उसके अंदर फिमेनियंस वगैरह होते हैं तो वो टीजी कैटेगरी में हम काउंट कर सकते हैं क्योंकि वो अपने आप को फीमेल मानता है बट वो गॉड गिफ्ट के हिसाब से वो उसका बायोलॉजिकल वो मेल है। बाद में वो जाके अपना ऑपरेशन से वो जो भी है वो करवा के वो फुली टीजी ये वो हो जाते हैं।
हाँ, सो ये देखिए ना, आपने भी बोला वो जो वो अपने आप को मानते हैं,
हाँ हाँ
राइट? वो जो अपने आप को मानते हैं कैन बी वेरी डिफरेंट।
ओके
जो अपने आप को मानते हैं वो उनका जेंडर होता है। सो they are trans people but they are also intersex people because you're saying there's a difference with their body, right? हाँ, बताइए आपका ये जो मैंने बोला समझ में आया आपको कि नहीं आया?
आया आया मैम।
Okay, so so a cis person is someone who is labeled a gender at birth and they still identify with it. A trans person is someone who doesn't identify with the gender that was assigned to them at birth. Now, what are some of the issues trans people actually face? आपने कभी, and before I get into that, can you tell me whether you know what a non-binary person is and a gender fluid person is? So someone asked me a question. Do you know what who a non-binary person is? Okay. So a non-binary person is someone who I said gender earlier लोगों ने माना gender ये चीज होता है. You are these two boxes. So you are these two boxes, male, female, and there is nothing. I am saying this is the spectrum. You can fall anywhere in between it, right? So when you used to say that gender may has only two categories, man and woman, a non-binary person is someone who says these two categories don't exist. Gender as a concept for me does not exist. And I don't fit into these binary categories. I don't fit into these two categories. When you talk about someone being gender fluid, you talk about them moving from the spectrum from here to here, wherever they feel like when they identify like. I got a lot of comments in the chat box. Okay, so non-binary person is that. Now let's come to trans people and some of the problems that trans people would face. First of all, how old do you think you are when you know your gender? When you feel your gender, give me a wild guess. How old do you think you are? 10, I think. Someone else? 6 years, 5 years, 20 years, 23 years, 2 to 3 years. Darshana, I actually right. Someone can actually tell their gender when they're 2 to 3 years old itself. You don't have to be like older for that to be a thing. You as a child come to know your gender automatically when you are 2 or 3 years. You don't need to be told that because that's a thing you can identify and no one else can. Um, so someone talks about how they feel a good sensation when their friend kisses them. When their friend kisses them, that's different. So now sex is one thing, gender is one thing, and sexuality is the next thing. Sexuality is हु डू यू फाइंड अट्रैक्टिव, आपको कौन पसंद आता है? जस्ट बिकॉज आप आदमी, डॉक्टर ने बचपन में देख के बोला आप आदमी हो, जरूरी नहीं आप बड़े होके आदमी जैसा महसूस करोगे, और जरूरी नहीं है आप सिर्फ औरत से प्यार करोगे. So gender, sexuality, and sex are different categories, and they are not the same, and they're not interchangeable. Is everyone with me? कि इसमें confusion है? Okay. If you have, okay, so if you have a question, ask me. So now, what are some of the specific issues about a trans person? I'm going to do this narrative in Hindi. सो मेरा एक दोस्त है, और वो रोज सुबह उठता है, और ये सच्ची कहानी है, सच्चा उसका लाइफ का है. तो जब वो रोज सुबह उठता है, वो ऐसा विश करता है कि वो श- शायद लड़का बन गया, पर वो देखता है कि लड़का नहीं बन गया है. वो बेड से निकलता है, वो सोचता है कि उसको जाके वॉशरूम यूज करना है, पर उसको खड़े होके वॉशरूम यूज करना है, पर उसको बैठ के करना होता है, और उसको डिस्गस्टिंग फील होता है कि वो नहीं कर सकता ये. फिर उसको नहाना पड़ रहा है क्योंकि सब लोग नहाते हैं. तो जब वो नहाने की कोशिश करता है, उसको अपने बदन से एकदम घिन जैसी महसूस होती है, क्योंकि उसको ऐसे बॉडी पार्ट्स छूने पड़ते हैं अपने, जो उसको लगता है कि वो उसके बॉडी पार्ट्स है ही नहीं. फिर वो मेहनत करके निकलता है, फिर उसको डिसाइड करना पड़ता है कि वो क्या पहने, कौन से टाइप के कपड़े पहने, क्योंकि उसको एक ऑफिस में नौकरी के लिए इंटरव्यू के लिए जाना है. नो मैटर वो कौन से टाइप के कपड़े पहने, उसको कोई ना कोई तो घूरने वाला है. उस अब ऑफिस में इंटरव्यू है, जॉब लगने वाला है, उसको एक फॉर्म फिल करना पड़ता है. वो फॉर्म को 15-20 मिनट देखता है और सोचता है कि वो जेंडर में क्या लिखे, ना कुछ भी लिखना होता है उसको जेंडर में, उसके उसके ऊपर पूछताछ होएगी और लोग उसको घूरेंगे. चलो वो भर देता है. फिर उसको सोचना पड़ता है कि वो ऑफिस कैसे जाए, कि वो ऑफिस जाए ट्रेन से कि कैब टैक्सी से. अगर वो ट्रेन से जाएगा तो लेडीज कंपार्टमेंट में कोई उसको पीटेगा, मेंस कंपार्टमेंट में कोई अपना हाथ उनके पैंट के अंदर डाल के देखने की कोशिश करेगा कि उनका जेंडर क्या है. पर तो वो टैक्सी लेके जाते हैं, और बेरोजगार है, और 600 रुपये टैक्सी पे खर्च करके अपनी जॉब पे चले जाते हैं. जॉब पे चले जाने के बाद इंटरव्यू के लिए इंटरव्यू वाला पूछता है कि बताओ भाई जेंडर क्या है, तुम्हारे पीरियड्स होते हैं कि नहीं, ये क्या है. उसको बैठ के एक्सप्लेन करना पड़ता है. उसको बैठ के एक्सप्लेन करना पड़ता है क्योंकि उसको नौकरी चाहिए. चलो वो नौकरी चाहिए, इसके लिए वो एक्सप्लेन करता है. उसके बाद भी उसको कोई नौकरी नहीं देता है, क्योंकि उसको सब सोचते हैं कि वो अजीब है. इतने मुश्किल दिन के बाद उसको उसको लगता है कि चलो थोड़ा स्ट्रेस कम होता है, मूवी के लिए जाता हूँ. मूवी के लिए जाने लगता है और रुक जाता है मॉल के एंट्रेंस पे, और उसको पैनिक अटैक हो जाता है. उसकी सांसें चढ़ने लगती है, उसको लगता है कि वो मरने का फीलिंग आता है, क्योंकि अब उसको फिगर आउट करना है कि कौन से लाइन में जाए सिक्योरिटी चेक के लिए, मॉल में घुसने के लिए, क्योंकि कोई भी लाइन में घुसने में उसको घूरा जाएगा. तो बताइए, इस जो मैंने आपको नरेशन दिया था, what is something that you haven't felt, what is something that you haven't thought of? Did everyone think of every scenario that I just said? So some of the people have said I didn't have an experience have that one, and any of their experience that one. I didn't get you. I'm asking you, did you ever think of any of the things that I just narrated to you? Hmm. So most of us never think of these things that are spoken about. They don't think of these things that are spoken about because there is so much that has happened. Right? There is so much that someone we take for granted, we take for advantage, because we don't need to think about things. But this is the life of a person who's trans every single day. And that's kind of hard. right? To have the life of someone who's trans every day, how will they not have problems in their life? How will they not be sad or have depression or have anxiety, right? Because they every day living for them is a struggle in itself. So if you're trans, some of the stresses that you're gonna have is, first of all, when you spoke about gender, कि आप gender, you accept your gender when you're 2 3, you automatically know what your gender is. One stressor comes is not self acceptance, what the stressor comes is other people accepting your gender, because सेक्सुअलिटी तो आप छुपा सकते हो, सबको पता नहीं चल सकता whether you're gay or not. But when you when you're a trans person, you can't hide it. You can't hide your gender, because gender is also a performance. What you choose to wear, how you choose to look is about gender. So you can't hide it, and people don't let you express your gender. So that's your first difficulty in the first place itself. Then you'll have to start telling people, or you'll have to keep rectifying. So if someone misgenders you, um, you'll have to keep telling them no, not sir, ma'am, or not ma'am, sir. And you'll have to keep doing this, and that's a very, very painful experience to keep correcting people, because people will keep misgendering you. And people misgender you on the basis of what's in their head. And in their head is very restricted forms of gender. My third issue would be, now if I'm a trans person, whether I've gone for a surgery or gender affirmation surgery or not, I will not probably find a partner. Now, what are the difficulties that I'll have when finding a partner? Are, firstly, everyone around me might be straight, but I would not be considered normative if I'm a straight trans person. If I'm a gay trans person, it becomes even more difficult for me, because people don't consider you the real deal. They consider you not a real man or a real woman or a real person, which is saddening. So I would have a difficulty in finding a partner. Let's assume I found a partner. What would be even more difficult is I would be invisibilized everywhere. I would be invisibilized in institutions. So many institutions till date don't have a category of gender which is not man or woman. If I'm a trans man, they will not have an option of a trans man. They would ask for my documentation. My documentation would have my gender at birth given to me, which would be woman. So all my documentation, all my employment would be made on that name. That is called my dead name, and they would not make it on my preferred name or my preferred gender. So that would be a problem. As a trans person, structures, जो society के structures होते हैं, वो सब अब mostly मेरे against हैं. So from the time of school to the time of old age, everything is against me. I'll tell you how. School में uniform, toilets won't gender के हिसाब से होंगे. When you grow up, your hospitals are like that. Your offices are like that. Everything literally is like that. So everything becomes restrictive. Now, of course, if I have to live a life which has so much happening every day, I'm going to get stressed. I'm going to feel helpless. I'm going to feel like I don't want to live. So when you talk about trans lives and you talk about trans suicides, trans people are 8 times more likely to kill themselves as compared to a straight person, and 4 times more likely to kill themselves as compared to a queer gay person, because their life is in itself a battle, and to survive is hard. Okay. Uh, so if some of you, I'm gonna stop here for a second. If you have questions, do tell me. So one of the questions are, those who have been in a heterosexual relationship only are wondering if they are attracted to same sex, and that's causing anxiety. What can they do? Obviously, it'll cause anxiety, but what you need to understand is that it's okay if you're attracted to the same sex, and very understandably causes anxiety, because the minute you accept that you're attracted to the same sex, you lose certain advantages in society. Like everything that you've believed about yourself starts to be questioned, right? Your sexuality, your relationship, your marriage, all of that starts to be questioned. So it's very obvious that you'll have anxiety. But the idea is not to get scared and to give your self the space to explore. I think that's something you can do. Uh, does anyone have a question about trans people?
Yeah. So I heard that a lot of like intersex kids when they are born, parents give them away to the local hijra community or something. Is
Yes.
it true?
Yes. So when intersex children are born, they are either given away to the Hijra community, or in 1960s there used to be this doctor in the US called John Money, who started encouraging parents to get surgeries, gender reassignment surgeries on their little infant. So there was this case about this person where this person was they made this intersex baby a girl. So they gave her female genitalia and everything, and then he made her grow up being a girl. They did stuff saying that she's a girl. The girl was like, the child was always told that she's a girl, and all of that was happening. And around the ages of 13 or 14, the child said that I don't identify as a woman, I don't feel like a woman, I feel like a boy. This same person committed suicide at the age of 38 because of the surgeries done uh, at birth. So, because of this case, a lot of intersex newborn infant surgeries were performed by people like John Mane, and a lot of children went through this torture where their gender was just decided for them. And a lot of times when they grew up, they did not identify with the gender that was assigned to them and that was made on their body. It's kind of torturous if you think of it. Any other questions? So someone said that many think that surgery is a top priority for all trans people. Is it true? Yes, if they want surgery, if they have something called as body dysmorphia, then definitely surgery is something that would help them. But however, saying that, all trans people might not opt for surgery. And some people, for a lot of people, surgery is a complete necessity because of the body uh, dysphoria that they feel. Because of the body dysphoria that they feel, surgeries are something that are extremely essential for them. So when you talk about trans people, most trans people have difficulties, especially in their puberty when their bodies start to change. That's why you have a lot of self harm that occurs with trans people.
So, Anshul, we have another question where how to handle situations where parents think that my child is too young to know that they are transgender.
Well, send your parents to someone who's a co-affirmative counselor like me, or like educate doctors and healthcare workers about how gender isn't something that needs to be spoken about when you're old. Gender is something that people know when they're a kid. So someone else asked me, can a person who identifies non-binary be trans? Yeah, so non-binary person comes under a trans umbrella anyway. How can we help transgender children in school? Oh, we can help transgender children in school by making the school more affirmative, giving the school knowledge and the teachers knowledge and the children knowledge that this is extremely normal, and this person is someone they should not be made fun of or treated differently or badly just because uh, of this. Someone also said something. How does one deal with stigmatization at a young age? What can adults do to help intersex children? So first of all, when you're dealing with children, you need to understand that children don't understand good and bad. What they pick up is on feelings of the adult. So if the adult is not being carrying stigma or isn't like treating someone differently, the other children around will also learn to do the same thing. And adults can literally ensure that they aren't like biased is the first thing. So, can a trans have hormonal shots but not go through the entire SRS, sex reassignment surgery? Yes, of course. Anybody can do whatever they are comfortable with, and nothing should be made compulsory. Because someone might want the hormone, someone might not want the hormone, someone might just want top surgery, and someone might not want that.
Anshul, if you can explain a little bit about what is the difference between transgender and being gender non-conforming?
So when you're gender non-conforming, you're saying that I disregard both these genders that are there, that I think are only two genders, which is man and woman. When you're saying you're trans, you're saying you disregard the gender that was assigned to you at birth. And now you either identify as man or woman, or you identify as gender non-conforming, which is you disregarding gender as a whole concept. Any other questions? So someone said, do trans people cut off their penises by themselves because they can't afford surgery? Yeah, sometimes they do if the dysphoria is so much. They would want to. Does anyone have more questions about trans people or gender or sex or sexuality? Anything? Why don't trans people get counseling to accept the gender they were given at birth? Because, sir, you tell me one thing, whether if I had to pick up Sahaj and give him counseling to accept the gender of a woman at birth, would that actually make him the woman at birth? It's basically telling me that counseling someone, actually, that would be an extremely torturous process if you ever actually had to give a trans person counseling, saying, why do you not accept your gender at birth? Because अगर कोई चीज counseling से fix हो जाती, or if you could make someone believe your gender, then I would just sit here on call and counsel everyone that they have a different gender, right? If it was so easy and if it was such a feeling. Acceptance according to what the person feels. It's not validating them. As in, I did not get you, Henna.
No, I was just writing my own views when this person asked the question about accepting the gender they were assigned at birth. So acceptance is according to what that person feels. So if we like tell them to like uh, uh, accept the body they are in, it's like we are not validating them.
And their experience, and then you're questioning the concept of being trans in itself only. Because then what you're saying is that whatever gender you are in, you should be that only, and there's nothing like trans.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Anshul, we have another question, which I think that it's important. Is why is transgender equality important? It can be more relatable to the recent trans bill as well.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna ask someone on this question, on this call a question. Tell me the punishment for raping a woman. Does anyone know the punishment of raping a woman on this call? Yes. 7 years. Yes. So Sailesh is right. 7 years is right. 7 years. Now, can you please tell me the punishment of raping a trans woman? Or what do you think it should be? What do you think it should be, even if you don't know? Raping a woman is 7 years. What do you think is raping someone who identifies trans? Similar, right? Same, right? But actually, the punishment for raping someone who considers themselves trans is 2 years. So someone who rapes a woman is 7 years. Someone who rapes a trans person is 2 years. The act is the same. Now, what are you telling me by this punishment and by this law? That it's a lesser offense to rape someone who's trans because they're secondary society, right? They're not actually. But raping a woman is like an offense. Raping a trans person is like lesser of an offense. That is the need for equal rights in that simple little way. That gives me the capsule that this is not does not only happen with rape. So when you look at 2015 reports or studies of trans people, it talks about how 92% of trans people were never given a job. Are you telling me someone, an entire community where 92% of people are never given a job, they don't need equal rights? They need more than equal rights to stand on the same footing. That's the difference. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Do we have more questions?
Do we have any other questions from the audience? Okay, so I think we do have new questions from the audience. Thank you so much, Achal. Thank you for this informative session. You really actually helped us understand various issues and how best we can address various trans issues and how to best, rather identify them, help them coexist in the society with us, and also, stand with what is wrong and stand with, for what needs to be done. So thank you so much, Achal. Thank you for this informative session.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And for more, mental health, resources and more information, you can refer to the Pavitra Fund website, and you will get a list of all the resources that is readily available for you to refer to. And feel free to write to us as well if you require any further assistance. Thank you so much.